Hello, gentle souls. A little late for this midweek update. I'm going to keep doing these midweek updates. You guys seem to like them. They're quick and easy for me to do. And interestingly enough, it also kind of gets me thinking about what I'm doing on the writing front. And sometimes I get ideas out of these things. So I wanted to talk about today. I took a couple of days off from writing. I did 2 writing sessions on Monday, and I officially finished the second third of the book on the editing front. And everything looked great. Everything looked awesome. I was very, very pleased with what I'd done, and I also found passages that I'd written in the book that I kind of forgot about. Again, as Corey Redikoff was saying, we were talking about that, or he was talking about that on his Facebook feed. And what I'm finding is sometimes your best passages are the ones you don't remember writing. This is definitely the case of that. And it was, I'd made notes that I needed to add something about, this particular thing, and I needed to add it towards the end of the second part of the book. And I had another note that I needed to add something else closer to the second part of the book. So I had a couple of add-ons that I needed to do, and as I was editing the second third of the book, I wanted to make sure, that I added those parts in. And then as I'm getting towards the end of the edit, I realized that I actually did write those 2 parts already. They were newer, but I had written them, and they fit seamlessly. So I had made changes at the beginning, and then changes in the third part of the book, and the 2 add-ons were like to mesh some stuff from the first third of the book with the third of the book, to make sure there was like transitional scenes. But they're already there, and I guess I'd written them. I realized I had to do it, and I wrote those scenes. I inserted those scenes, and then I proceeded with editing the first third of the book again. And it was seamless. It was perfect. Actually, there was a couple things I wasn't sure on. Like, I knew I had to write those parts, but there was a couple of links. I'm like, okay, well, I'll do that, but then I got to figure out a way to link this other little piece. And I wasn't sure how I was going to do that. So when I reread what I wrote, I had already done. I already figured out stuff I didn't know how to figure out. So anyway, it was awesome. I got really excited. So what I've learned in this editing process is I always enjoyed. So here's what I want to say is I've always enjoyed the process of writing. Once I got comfortable with the ability to do it, I really fell in love with the process. And I think when I went through the NaNoWriMo thing, it taught me a different way of doing the same thing I was doing before, but approaching the writing in a different way, where you're not self-editing as you're writing, you're just writing and letting it flow. I think that process allowed me to let go of any fear that this isn't good enough and just go with it. And as you're writing, not worrying about editing, sometimes you actually write your way out of a problem just by persevering and going forward. Generally, you'll hamstring yourself and then write, go back, edit what you just wrote, write again, go back, edit what you just wrote, write again, and keep repeating it. And then in the end, you might have actually had a couple of nuggets of great stuff in there that you've already erased, that you've already forgotten about, that you don't have a record of anywhere, that you might have been able to reinsert had you saved it. So, never delete anything. You can have 27 drafts of a book. That's fine. You may want to go back and find a genius piece that you'd written off and said, this is no good, just throwing it out. Don't throw anything out. Be a hoarder. That's okay. So now I'm into the last third of the book, and my editor, who had done the last edit for me, the big comment he'd made was that the ending was good. The action scenes were well written. And Corey Redcop, I was going to send you a note because you're trying to find some help in writing some action scenes. I was in that same boat, and I don't remember the stuff I read to figure it out. But the one thing I did do is I did use action figures to plan out some of my action scenes in the early going. I wrote lots of action scenes in my Simca series that I wrote for 3 years at The Guild Companion. But that was written in script format, so I don't know if that's usable or not. But anyway, The Guild Companion looked back to 2003, March of 2003, and my Simca series is there and runs for 36 consecutive months. Anyway, so as I'm going into the third third of the book, my editor had said, "Hey, you know what? These action scenes are good. I like them. I like what you're doing with them. But it seems like the ending of the book is kind of a bit anticlimactic. There's this big build, and the final scenes are executed well, but it seems like you're missing something. It seems like a big build up towards an ending that's tied too neatly." And I definitely didn't disagree with him on it. Like I spent a lot of time staging what that final battle would be. Corey, the thing you should be doing for an action sequence, which is very helpful, which I used a lot of the times, was actually thumbnailing. And I don't know if you can draw or not. You don't need to. You can stick figure your stuff. You can use action figures. Actually see what the moves are that your characters are doing in the action scene. If you visualize it, you might be able to spell it out in writing, in actual writing. Anyway, so I'd staged the action sequence at the end. I did a lot of plotting. What's this going to look like visually? What do I want to see happen? There's a scene with a car. What happens when the car suddenly stops? What would happen to the occupants inside when they have seatbelts on? I strategized a long time plotting the whole final battle out. And when it was done, I was very happy with the action sequence. I personally think it was a solid piece of action writing, which hopefully I'm getting good at by this point. But it was still missing some sort of intrigue or something, and I wasn't really sure what to do with that. So in the editing that I've been doing, all the add-ons I've been doing since since Larry came in and edited my book, what I've been doing since then, all the little pieces I've been adding in, they said, "Oh, why don't you do something with this, or why don't you add something like that?" All those things that I've been adding in have actually helped me decide how I'm going to actually end the book, which is different than how I previously ended it. It will still have the same ending, but I found something I can use it as an addendum. Addendum? Is that the right word? Where I can add something at the end that's actually going to give more meaning to the ending I already had. Give it something to add on to it and really explode the story. I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to better get the reader on with the enemy's motivations, and trying to get the readers more in tune with the character Thomas and who he is and what he represents and why he's there and why you should care for him. I spent a lot of time working those particular angles and shaping them a little bit better so they're less pointed edges of storytelling and more rounded, concave, and organic storytelling methods. So it's at the point where I'm really happy with that build-up. But what that build-up has allowed me for is opened a door for me at the end where I can just say, okay, this final scene ends, and as Larry said, it's anticlimactic. It's good, but it's anticlimactic. There's something missing there. Well, I found there's something that's missing there. And it's a bit of a sleight of hand from a storytelling perspective that I'm doing, that I've peppered throughout the whole book. Inadvertently, I have peppered it. And I've actually got the seeds for the ending, which will have a bit of a, like I said, sleight of hand is probably the best way to describe it. You think it ends a certain way and you're like, oh, this is it, this is how it ends. But it actually opens up all the seeds I planted earlier. And it actually gave me an actual true ending to this book that just blew my mind when I came up with it today. So I know exactly what I need to do to finish this book now. I know exactly how to make that grand finale of the book. I know exactly how I'm going to use my characters towards the end of that book. I've even got, things I could do if I do a second book. I've got enough there to get me excited about actually wanting to do a second book. I don't need to do a second book. I don't think it's necessary. I do have a plan for something post-book of what to do with everything that happens. I could do it as a novel, I could do it as something else. And the something else may be more interesting than doing a novel, or I may do both. Anyway, I've got plans. I've leaked out my ideas of what would come after this book and how I would move forward. Anyway, worth checking out. I think you'd be surprised with how it ends out. Very, very exciting. So the writing session today was great. I figured all that stuff out. I edited probably for the last third of the book. I think today, in the last two editing sessions, I think I got halfway through what I already had, which is amazing. So I only got half to go, and then I've got again, for lack of a better word, I'm going to have an addendum to add on to the book, maybe an epilogue. And I'm so excited. I'm actually really excited to finish this now. And I was getting a little bit worried because it's already September, and I hadn't gone into the third part of the book. And how am I going to end this? How am I going to end this before? Because I really want to finish it before the end of the year. That's my plan. But I don't know if I can get there. I don't know if I have enough time, and I've committed to finishing by the end of the year. So I either have to double up my efforts or something. But I'm halfway through the third of the book. So which will lead me, if I can finish this off potentially by the end of October, I could probably do a NaNoWriMo in November. And the NaNoWriMo in November would be to actually go in and do a little bit of formatting because the chapters tend to flip between different voices, I guess. It's all third person, but it's kind of different voices. Because it does that, I think I want to do some formatting. Nothing super fancy, but something to differentiate the chapters, the types of chapters from the other types of chapters, because there's two types of chapters in the book. So I just got to figure out that formatting. I haven't selected a font. I think I've changed my mind on the font that I used, how I've indented, like done indents on the book, paragraph formats. There's multiple different types of paragraph formats you can use, and I'm using 3 different kinds because this came in from Word, from a Microsoft Word file into here. So I can probably devote my November to that, to just getting formatting done. And if the formatting's done, then December could be, just general polish. So it's kind of the plan. Well en route to getting this shit off the ground. So, yeah, man. So, yeah, that's it, man. I'm going to get on my way home. I will see you guys on the flip side.